Namaste, my friends. We are now in part 4, and I think this will probably be the last section, on astronomy for astrologers. Now, my next topic is the precession of the equinoxes, which has to do with the relationship of the tropical zodiac to the stars in the sky. Now, you should know by now, or probably you remember, what makes the tropical zodiac? What determines what is the tropical zodiac? Suppose you were taking a test, and the question is, what is the tropical zodiac? How would you describe it? Well, the tropical zodiac is a measurement along the ecliptic plane that starts where the celestial equator, the yellow one, intersects, means crosses, the ecliptic plane. And the ecliptic plane intersects the ecliptic plane and the celestial equator intersect each other at two opposite points. This is always true when you have two great circles. It's like two hula hoops going around somebody, and they intersect at opposite points. So a circle, two circles are going to do that. And one of them is 0 Aries, and that's also the vernal equinox, where the sun is when spring begins, and the opposite one for Madonna is over here, and that's 0 Libra, also known as the autumnal equinox. Now, actually, wait, let me go, I'm getting mixed up here. This, what did I do? This is not her chart. I had moved it. Let me move it back. Let's see, I want to get back to 12:05 Universal Time. Sorry about that. I've been moving this around in the previous classes. Okay, now we're back to 12:05 Universal Time. Whoops. I clicked once too often. And I think I'm finally back to 12:05 Universal Time with that Mercury right there. Okay, here's her chart. Sorry about that. Same idea. So anyway, here's the 0 Aries. Here's the 0 Libra. Now, how do I know this is Aries? Well, there's a few ways I could tell. One is, I could look at the constellations, because the sign of Aries is roughly the constellation of Pisces. Here's Pisces down here and extending up to here. So this Aries is about the same as Pisces. And then Taurus would be the next 30 degrees. So if I go, what I think is 30 degrees, I'm not sure about, say about that, about 1/12 of a circle, that should be Aries. This will be Taurus, tropical, and there's the constellation Aries. So by seeing the constellations, I can tell. Another way I could figure out where the zodiac signs are. Right, I'm following this way. I'm following the green, which is the ecliptic plane. So this is Aries in the constellation of Pisces, so that makes more sense. Pisces going right through the ecliptic plane. And then here's Taurus, and there's Aries close to the ecliptic plane. Aries is a very small constellation. And here's Taurus, which would probably be Gemini, and so on. The other thing I could do is I could look at the chart and verify where the planets are. Where is Mars in her chart? And where is the Sun? And so on. So if I look at her chart, this is her normal chart. Mars is in the middle of Taurus. Sun is in late Leo. Go back to the sky map. Taurus, middle of Taurus. 30, 60, yeah, that sounds about right. And, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. So this must be Leo, and this is towards the end of Leo. And so this must be Virgo. In the constellation Leo, it looks like they overlap in modern times. The end of Leo is the beginning. End of Leo sign is the beginning of the constellation Leo. And she has Virgo rising, which is still in the constellation of Leo, which makes sense. So I can look at the chart. I can look at the constellations, and from that I can tell that this must be 0 Aries. This must be 0 Libra, right there in the constellation Virgo. It makes perfect sense. So that's it. So there's our zodiac. And the tropical zodiac signs that we use are simply 30-degree sections every 30 degrees along the ecliptic plane. Now, why is the constellation Pisces in the sign of Aries? What's up with that? What kind of weird thing is that? Well, that is related to what we call precession of the equinoxes. And what happens is the zodiac signs move through this fixed stars. We often call the stars in the sky, like Regulus and the Pleiades and so on, fixed stars, because sometimes the word stars is used to mean planets as well. Anyway, the stars, or more specifically fixed stars, to distinguish them from planets, have a relation. The positions of the fixed stars have a relationship to the tropical zodiac, which is that the tropical zodiac moves backwards. Backward motion is sometimes called retrograde or backwards motion, about 1 degree every 72 years. 1 degree every 72 years comes out, it's actually a little less than 72 years, is 30 degrees in 2,160 years, is the entire circle of 360 degrees in almost 26,000 years, about 25,920 years. So in other words, what we're saying is that this point where the ecliptic plane and the celestial equator cross is going to move backwards in this direction, retrograde, through the fixed stars. And it takes a little over 2,000 years to move 30 degrees. So somewhere around the year 0, or maybe 200 or 300 AD, somewhere in that range, the zodiac signs and the constellations matched up pretty well. And then now it's 2,000 years later, and they're about almost one sign different. But the constellations are not exactly 30 degrees. I mean, Aries is this little tiny thing. Virgo is huge. So they overlap. They're not nice little 30-degree divisions. So you can't really say exactly when the constellations and signs match up, because the constellations are not neatly divided. And in India and some astrologers in the West use something called a sidereal zodiac, which is approximately the same as the constellations, except they have nice, neat 30-degree divisions, unlike the constellations. Now, why is this 0 Aries point going very slowly, taking almost 26,000 years? If you can imagine that, for this point to move all the way around. Well, what it has to do with is the Earth is spinning like a top, and it wobbles a little bit, not to make you nervous, because when you have a spinning top and it wobbles, it eventually wobbles really big and it stops and falls. But this is happening over what for humans is huge amounts of time, and the Earth wobbles just like a spinning top. And as it wobbles, that wobble causes the North Star to move, and it causes this point to move. To visualize that takes a little bit of time. We don't have to get into it. You can just take my word for it. This point is going to move due to the wobble of the Earth. If you think about it, as the Earth wobbles, the celestial equator is going to spin around, basically. So it's really not that hard to visualize. But anyway, it's moving very, very slow. The Earth is wobbling very, very slowly, taking almost 26,000 years to make one wobble. And so that's it. That's precession of the equinoxes. And this idea that we're going into the Aquarian age is the idea that the vernal equinox, when it's in the constellation Aquarius, gives an Aquarian tone to the whole world. So the idea is that the constellations or some kind of sidereal zodiac has some validity, and the relationship of the tropical zodiac to the sidereal zodiac creates these 2,160-year periods called ages. So that's the basic idea. I don't know if you followed all that, if this is new to you, but the basic idea is that this does move due to the wobble of the Earth, this 0 Aries point, and it moves backwards 1 degree in a little less than 72 years, which is significant. If somebody's 72 years old, this point has moved 1 degree through the constellation, so it's not completely trivial, even though it's such a long cycle. It's moved 1 degree through the fixed stars in 72 years. So it does create some issues that can change things astrologically when you look at relationships of fixed stars to planets and so on. Okay, so that's what this is about. Now, if the zodiac signs, not if, they are, I mean, given that the zodiac signs are moving retrograde through the fixed stars, you could think of the fixed stars as going direct through the zodiac signs, right? As you're saying the same thing. I mean, if I'm walking forward, going north on a street, then the street is, well, anyway, forget it. That was confusing. You got the idea. Forget my analogy. The zodiac signs are moving retrograde through the fixed stars. Means the fixed stars are going direct through the constellations. And that becomes very interesting. We can look at some interesting things with that. Let me show you this thing called the star catalog. In Kepler Workshop, I can select Western Star Catalog. I can also go back to the main Sirius thing and go to Ephemeris Star Catalog, and that would do the same thing. Bring up this feature of the Kepler Workshop module. I'll go to Star Catalog right here, and I had typed in Regulus before, and so I'll type it in again. It says search for, and I search for Regulus, and there it is. And look at its position. Regulus is right on the ecliptic plane, 0 north 28. I wonder if we could see that in... we can go back to her sky map later and verify that. But the stars, are all over the sky. Regulus is a bright star, and it's right on the ecliptic plane, only a half a degree off the ecliptic plane. And it's in Virgo, but barely in Virgo, 0 Virgo 01. Now, the fixed stars are going to move 1 degree every 72 years, is a little over 1 minute a year. I'm looking at this for January 1st, 2013. I'll highlight the 3, change it to 12, hit enter, and Regulus is now here. It's got this little arrow pointing to it, and there it is, 0 Virgo 00. And in 2011, I'll type 2011, hit enter, 11 Leo 59. So right around 2012, Regulus went into Virgo. The fixed star Regulus went into Virgo. How long will it be there? About 2,160 years. It's going to be there for over 2,000 years. That perhaps has some meaning in terms of the fixed stars moving through the signs. Regulus is the king. So the last 2,000 years have been the king, Regulus. Regulus has the same root as the word regal. It's the heart of the lion. So it's the heart. It's the king, the power, the heart of the king. It's been in Leo. So we've had a tendency to have kingdoms through the past 2,000 years, and until the 1700s or so, and people started becoming free. So, but that was still evidently Regulus was in Leo. Well, what would happen going to Virgo? Maybe the kings will become more like servants, more like Virgo. Maybe the leaders will become more feminine, more nurturing, more supportive, more interested in the people, rather than as much emphasis on royalty. And so this is the idea, and so that makes sense. But anyway, it's interesting. You can look at the fixed stars going through the constellation, through these zodiac signs. Whether that particular interpretation is meaningful or not, it does seem reasonable. So I'm going to go back to Sky Map, but I'm covering it mainly to give you this understanding of what our tropical zodiac is, how it relates to the fixed stars, and how things work. What the astronomical basis of astrology is. Okay, so Madonna has Mars in Taurus. What does that mean astronomically? It means Mars is between 30 and 60 degrees from the vernal equinox. Her Pluto, Mercury, and Moon are in Virgo. That means they're between 150 and 180 degrees from the vernal equinox. No wonder some astronomers think we're crazy. I mean, because a planet's between 150 and 180 degrees from the vernal equinox, you're going to have these Virgo qualities. It seems unbelievable. But why not? It's possible. Stuff in in quantum theory and relativity theory don't make sense either. So anyway, look at Jupiter, Neptune, and Scorpio. Look at Jupiter and Neptune. I think I meant Saturn. I have a typo there. Saturn. In Madonna's chart and in the sky map. Does it make sense that Jupiter's in late Libra, Neptune in early Scorpio, and Saturn in early Sagittarius? So Jupiter in late Libra. Here's Jupiter over here. Does that make sense? Think about it. Well, if that's 0 Libra, 30 degrees, yeah, that would make sense. And Neptune right here, just a little further. So not separated by very much. They're right close. They're always close to the ecliptic plane. So there's late Libra, early Scorpio, and here's Saturn. Yeah, it looks like it makes sense. And here's her chart with Jupiter at 26 Libra. Neptune's is only 6 degrees away, but a new sign. And Saturn about in the middle to later Sagittarius. So it's nice to be able to know that you can look at your astrology chart, look at the planets in the sky, and make sense out of it. By seeing where the ecliptic plane intersects the celestial equator, and then measuring along that, just guessing, I guess that's roughly 30 degrees. Yep, 30 must be there, because that's late Libra. Scorpio's the next 30 degrees. Looks like 30, another 30 might take me in here. Yep, because the whole sign of Scorpio, and then Saturn towards the end of Sagittarius means Capricorn must be over here, and so on. So you can see what's going on. So it's nice to relate the astrology chart to the sky map, because the sky map is actually where the planets were in the sky. And how those positions in the sky get translated or converted, whatever word you want to use, into the perspective and the model, whatever you want to call it, the framework that astrologers use, I think it's quite fascinating. We've taken the celestial sphere and we've put these great circles out there, and we measure along them, and we see when they intersect, and meanings are given to different sections. I think it's good to have a sense of the astronomy, the astronomical facts, you could say, behind what we're interpreting. And sometimes they're not what you might have thought, and they do seem a little bit strange in some ways. And it may trigger some new ideas. Like we got this idea of looking at fixed stars through the zodiac signs just by following the astronomy. It really opens you up to think about things in new ways, to have a sense of what's going on under the hood, so to speak. Okay. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you look at Moon, Jupiter, Neptune, and Saturn in the sky map, the Moon is on one side, Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune are on the other side. Let's verify that. The Moon is up from the ecliptic plane. Jupiter is a little bit below it, tiny bit below it. Neptune a little bit below it. Saturn almost right on it, but slightly below. So that's the latitude. And let's see what the latitude is. If I go back to Sirius and go back to the technical wheel, see, Sirius knew when I was doing a horizon map, and it changed this to be a horizon coordinate. Now I'm in the normal zodiac longitude, and this has gone back to being an appropriate information for the kind of chart we're looking at. It's a great feature. The information adapts to the kind of chart you're looking at. So the Moon is 3 south latitude. Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune are all about 1 degree north, with Neptune being the furthest, closest to 2 degrees. So it makes sense. Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune are on one side, of the ecliptic plane, Jupiter, Neptune, and Saturn, and Neptune is the furthest from the ecliptic plane. You can see Jupiter is very close, Saturn's very close. They're like part of it's touching, just slightly more. And the Moon is the furthest from the ecliptic plane on the other side. So this ends up being the south latitude, and this is the north latitude. Which one's north and south? Well, we've got south at the top of this thing, so that's why this direction is south. So, but anyway, I want to just show you again that the latitude, the distance from the green line, the green circle, does match the information given here, over here, the latitude. So that's good. It is what we expect it to be. So I'm giving you a better idea of how you can take things like latitude and understand visually. It is a visual phenomenon. You have to visualize what that means, so that this map of the sky doesn't have to be scary or confusing to an astrologer. This is what you interpret. It's good to make friends with it and get an idea of what it is we actually do in astrology in terms of translating the positions of these planets in the celestial sphere in all three dimensions, and then represent it in a way in how we interpret it. Okay, so let's see. We've already described what the ascendant is. Most of this I've already covered already. I've just mentioned, I think it was one of the previous parts of this tutorial on astronomy for astrologers, how ignoring latitude makes the astrology chart simpler. And it raises the question, wouldn't it be more accurate to use the actual positions? Answer, intuitively I thought that it would be more accurate, but in my research and studies, I was surprised that the zodiac longitude gave me better results. This phony position, projecting the planet on the ecliptic plane, which is not even really where it is, it works better in different research. I'm not going to go through the details of research. So maybe it doesn't suit our intuition or my intuition, but the really important thing is what actually works. And again, we don't have measurable results yet in astrology, but maybe someday we will, or what seems to symbolically work the best. And so maybe the projected position works. Maybe the ecliptic plane is like a vibrating string. We don't know. But for me, it's been working better than using the actual positions. I can talk about in some future video about how you can use actual positions, but there are ways to do it. They haven't helped me understand people, though. Doesn't mean they don't work. Everybody's just fiddling around here, and maybe I missed it. Okay, but I wanted to address that question. It seems like we're not using, we're fudging. Maybe we should be using the actual positions. I tried it, and it didn't help. At least not me in my poking around with it. Okay, now just to summarize, you should be familiar with this idea of a coordinate system. A coordinate system is a way of talking about where planets are in this, or any celestial object is. To have a coordinate system, you need a great circle. It means a circle with you in the middle. You need a starting point on a circle, because a circle has no beginning or end, so you pick some starting point. You decide which direction you're going to measure, because you have two directions. You either head in one direction or the other direction, so you decide which of those two directions. By convention, we measure 0 to 360 degrees, although right ascension sometimes uses a different measurement, called 0 to 24 hours. You basically divide the degrees by 15. So you pick your measurement system, usually 0 to 360, but it could be 0 to 24. And then you have a distance from the Great Circle. Okay? And zodiac longitude, each block of 30 degrees along the ecliptic plane, is given the name of a zodiac sign. And I've talked about how 0 Aries, the vernal equinox, and the ascendant are similar. They're intersections of planes. So I'm just reviewing some things here. So we learned about the horizon coordinates, the ecliptic coordinates, and we learned about the equatorial coordinates. I've already covered that, right ascension and declination. And the positions in right ascension and declination are similar. because the two great circles are not that far apart. And so 0 in right ascension and 0 in zodiac longitude are the same. So if you're at 0, you're right there. 0 longitude and 0 latitude. So 0 longitude and 0 latitude is the same as 0 right ascension, 0 declination. And they're not hugely different. So the positions tend to be similar. If in one it's 90 degrees, the other might be 92 or 93 degrees. For fixed stars, they can make a bigger difference because fixed stars are further away from these planes. Anyway, that's not critically important. But if you look at right ascension, you'll notice right ascension positions are usually similar to longitude positions. I can show you that in Sirius. If I go to, I'm looking at Madonna's chart. If I go to listing, planet positions list, here's the right ascension, here's the longitude. And this is what I mean. Longitude of moon is 11 Virgo, right ascension is 11 Virgo. 5 Virgo, 5 Virgo. 0 Leo, 2 Leo. 15 Taurus, 13 Taurus. They're usually within a few degrees of each other. Uranus is 3 degrees different. And for some asteroids and some fixed stars, the difference might be bigger. But I just thought I'd mention that. And it's because there's 23 degrees difference in those planes between the equatorial plane and the ecliptic plane, and it usually doesn't make a huge difference, especially for planets. And actually, let me mention this. I mentioned before that the celestial equator is the equator extended out into the sky. Actually, the latitude and longitude lines on the Earth. Like 0 longitude goes through England, and and then you go east longitude through Europe and west longitude, and by the time you get to North America and South America, you're like 70 west to 120 west or something. Those latitude and longitude lines, you can extend those out into the sky, but here's some crazily confusing terminology. I didn't make it up, so don't blame me. But when you extend the longitude and latitude geographic lines on our map into the sky, they're called right ascension and declination. In the sky, in astronomy, longitude and latitude refers to the ecliptic plane, right? Zodiac, longitude, and latitude. When you extend longitude and latitude on the Earth out into the sky, it's called right ascension and declination. And so right ascension and declination are like longitude and latitude coordinates on the Earth extended out into the sky, except the 0 points are different. But it's the same idea. But I wanted to mention that because the terminology is confusing if you think about it. Because when you project geographic longitude and latitude in the sky, it changes names to right ascension and declination. But then there's another thing in the sky, which is the one we use most often in astrology, which is longitude and latitude. The zodiac positions are zodiac longitude. Anyway, it's confusing terminology. Just thought I'd mention that. Maybe by mentioning it, I might have confused you more. Hope not. Okay, so should astrologers care about these other coordinate systems? Maybe, maybe not. We do use declination, and I talked about declination arcs already. I'm almost at the end here. We've discussed 3 great circles: the ecliptic plane, the celestial equator, and the horizon. There are 2 other great circles. There's a total of 5 great circles that are most often used related to astrology. The 4th one I did mention is the meridian plane, which goes north and south. We looked at that. And where the ecliptic plane crosses the 10th house is the 10th house cusp, also known as the MC, and the point opposite is the IC. So I've described all 4 of those. I wanted to mention the 5th one, which is the prime vertical. So there's a 5th great circle, which is the same thing as the meridian plane. They both go through the zenith and nadir, but instead of going north-south, it goes east-west. And we don't use the prime vertical very much. If you're familiar with the vertex and the anti-vertex, it's where the prime vertical and the ecliptic plane intersect. Edward Jandro and Charles Jane and other astrologers in the 20th century said, gee, we use intersections of every other set of great circles. Why not the intersection of the prime vertical with the ecliptic plane? You see the logic of that? Once you know this astronomy that I've covered in these series of 4 videos, tutorial videos, about the importance of a great circle intersecting the great circle of the ecliptic plane, and how that starts the zodiac and the houses and so on, it just, and the 10th house cusp, it just dawns on you, well, what about the prime vertical? Maybe we should use that also. So it gives you an appreciation for how these ideas have developed. Okay, well, I have covered everything, and I'm at almost 31 minutes, which is sort of my limit for how long I like to talk. Otherwise, it's just too long to handle in one time. So I'm done. I hope you're able to follow that. You can always watch those again and get that. I think it's really important information. I hope you find it interesting. Some people find these things exciting. Some people find them a bit dull. But I hope I made it as interesting as it can be. I love it. Find it interesting. If there are other things, videos you would like that I might be able to help with, let me know. There's other things I could have talked about in astronomy, like the asteroids, the motions of the planets, etc. There's always so much in the field of astrology. Okay, we have finished all 4 parts of Astronomy for Astrologers. Hooray! If you watched all 4 of them, congratulations. You should get a gold medal. Hopefully you understood it. Hopefully you didn't fall asleep. Take care. I hope you enjoyed that. Good night. God bless. Namaste.